Welcome to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast where small business owners are celebrated as the backbone of the American economy. Each week, we introduce you to tycoons who share their stories and advice so that small business owners may learn from their experiences. Tycoons is powered by Backbone Planning Partners and Pivotal Advisors. Join us now as our hosts connect you to today's tycoons.
Good afternoon, Tycoons, and welcome to today's episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm your host here, as always, Austin Peterson. Normally coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona, but I decided that I wanted to understand what it felt like to be Gary Braun. So I've gone to Salt Lake City. It was 2 degrees when I got out of bed this morning, and the pipes at my Airbnb were frozen. So there was no water at my Airbnb this morning. Luckily, I had a bottle of water to brush my teeth, and I had showered late yesterday afternoon. So all is well. Nobody is having to deal with the way that Austin may have smelled without a shower. With that being said, Gary actually switched climates as well. So Gary Braun, my co-host, is here. He's out in Palm Springs enjoying the 62 degrees that are out there. And then we've got our tycoon guest, Keith Baldwin, coming in to us from Philadelphia. But before I introduce Keith, if this is the first time you're listening to our podcast or looking at our podcast on YouTube and wondering what it is that we do here at Tycoons, we're a podcast that's put together by small business owners for small business owners. We believe completely that the backbone of the American economy is the small business owner and the employees that work for them. It's what drives the economy here in our country. And so 2.5 years ago, my partner and I, Landon Mance, decided to start a podcast, and we brought some other partners along the way to give business owners an opportunity to share their stories, share their advice, share their successes, their failures, in an effort to prop up their business, obviously, but also to share stories that will help other business owners. So with that being said, we definitely have a tycoon on the podcast today. We've got Keith Baldwin. He's Chief Relationship Officer and Managing Partner of Spikes Trophies out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So Keith, welcome to the show.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. And I'm a little uncomfortable about the label of a tycoon, quite honestly.
That's not the first time we've heard that, Keith, but we believe that if you've built a business, which you have, obviously you took over. I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you kind of tell the story, but you took over this business after a number of years working there. So, let's before we go into the business side and how you kind of got involved here, let's back up a second and have you tell us about your family, about your personal life. Did you grow up in the Philly area? Did you go to college? If so, what did you study? Whatever you'd like us to know about you personally, we'd love to hear it.
And maybe you can even take 20 seconds to root on your Eagles going to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, go Birds. The Philly community is quite excited right now. And I am an Eagles fan and involved in the sports community. I have a few murals on the side of my building. I do have a Super Bowl mural on one side of my building, and I have a meeting tomorrow morning with the mural arts department. And if God willing, we win again, I'll have a second mural of a second Super Bowl.
Awesome.
So anyway, about me, born and raised in Northeast Philadelphia, dropped out of college when I was 18 to stumble into the company that I currently own. I started when I was 14 working for a local sporting goods company. I was putting my way through college when they came across a dying awards company that was up for sale that they wanted to buy and needed somebody to run it. I was not the greatest student in the world and was biding my time and raised my hand in a meeting and dropped out of school and went to run it, or basically have it run me. My parents weren't exactly thrilled, but I ended up there. The company was available because it was basically run into the ground by the prior owner and left for dead. And that's another story unto itself. So just through osmosis, I worked for 2 absentee owners and learned the business over 25 years and bought it about 15 years ago.
Okay. So quite the story, but so maybe I missed the part where you said how exactly you found out about the business. Did you say it was an ad in the paper or what?
No, the sporting goods company that I was working for part-time, putting myself through school. I started when I was 14 as their skate sharpener and tennis racket stringer, and had worked my way up from stock boy to I was a part-time assistant manager, one of their retail sporting goods locations, and I didn't know anything about the awards business. And this company came available, and they acquired it and needed somebody to run it. And I was there for 5 years at that, or 4 or 5 years at that point, and said, I'll do it. And went there without any knowledge of the business and learned it through the School of Hard Knocks.
Gotcha.
That's a big step to take, man. If you don't have that background and whatnot, had to be a little scary going in.
It's a good thing I was young and dumb. I should have failed. And I just worked 24/7 and got lucky through hard work.
Yeah,
Because the reason it was up for business, the person before me was embezzling money, sold the awards under cost and was pocketing the money. And once the business was taken over, he stole the inventory and stole the orders, took some people, ended up going to jail and going to rehab. And that's what I walked into. So when I say I walked into a shell of a company, I got a hell of an education as a teenager when people were coming in asking for an award that last year was $10, and now I'm telling them it's $20, and I'm making not a lot of money in doing that. And I got cursed at, and I learned the business pretty quick.
But how do you pick up the business acumen, Keith? Because not many 18, 19-year-olds, know how to plan a business and figure out margin and where's my
Same way when you throw a baby in the pool and say swim. You have no choice. You learn.
So what kind of support did you have from the parent company, I guess, the sporting goods company that had purchased the company?
Well, they were financially challenged. So I learned how to negotiate at a very young age. I would negotiate with my parent company to get bills paid so I get the parts in order to pick them up and assemble them through the night and deliver them the next day. So the support was in a lot of different ways of things not to do. And the thing that the support they gave me was the responsibility at a very young age, where they let me do it and let me learn. So that's the greatest gift that was given to me. I didn't know it at the time. It didn't seem like it at the time. I can remember sitting there on a Sunday night after, I don't know, working through the weekend, literally, just sitting there crying, didn't think I'd make it. And I was just fortunate enough that, again, just young enough and dumb enough to be able to stick it out.
Yeah. Sorry, Gary, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, tell us a little bit about the business. Now it's Spike's Trophies, but you do awards and trophies and signage. Did that start right away, or did that get
No? So the business is composed now of basically 3 parts. The main part is still the awards business. It used to be the traditional trophies. People think of bowling trophies back in the day, youth sports. We still do a fair amount of it, some national accounts, but it's a smaller part of our business. Corporate awards is the biggest part of our business. And along with that, we're a manufacturer of that. We sell promotional products. It's anything with a logo. And we're a broker for that. And then we also started a sign division a number of years ago when the ADA, American with Disabilities Act, came out. And our specialty is interior signage, where we manufacture ADA compliant signage for public, mostly eds and meds in our area, colleges, universities, hospitals is a big part of our business where we manufacture.
That's interesting. How did you add that on? Obviously from a young age, you knew the trophy business and the awards business and whatnot. How did we suddenly branch into signs?
Joining a national buying group, that I am now the president of, I learned, and they taught me. So along the way, when the ADA came out, they brought in somebody that was an expert in ADA signage and flew us to Atlanta. And I went there and spent a day to learn how to manufacture it and a day how to market it, came back and got into the ADA signage business through the help of this national buying group that I belong to.
That's really interesting. So I come from the sales background. We help lots of small businesses with sales. That to me seems like now you were chasing two different types of clients, or maybe there's an overlap.
You are correct. It's a totally different sales animal. I hired somebody completely different to do that. The thing that it did do, it used our manufacturing capabilities. We had the machinery. We had the people to do it. We're a seasonal business. And the thought process was it was going to level out our manufacturing year and be able to allow me to keep a stable workforce year round.
Oh, so flatten out.
So it wasn't from a sales aspect. It was more from a manufacturing standpoint, and I had to add the sales component to it. And I brought somebody in that is from that industry that basically added that sales expertise for that that industry.
Interesting. So how do you go about generating business, Keith? And it's probably different for both sides of your business, but where does it come from? How big is the team to go generate business?
I've got 3 showrooms in the area. Each showroom has a couple salespeople. We feed it every day with a truck. It's all computerized. So that's the local aspect of it. I do have outside sales reps, 10 of those that work out of the office and travel. We're small, well, we're a regional player with national accounts out of local relationships. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I have a client that's in the promotional space, a lot of logo wear and things like that. They always talk about they affectionately call them trunk slammers, but anybody who wants to sign up with somebody can get into your market. There's a low barrier of entry. They're less sophisticated than yourself or somebody else. But how do you differentiate?
The aspect there is we're a true manufacturer. So if you wanted something personalized today,
yeah.
And sometimes I say I'm in the I forgot business because you forgot you were going to present somebody with something tonight, and it wasn't that your responsibility. I get that call, and give me an hour. I got the inventory, I've got the capacity, I've got the machinery. We laser engrave, we sandblast, we digitally print, we have wide format printing. There's a number of different ways that we mark product quickly. And you asked me how I got business. A lot of it is relationship. My card says Chief Relationship Officer. I truly believe that I'm in the relationship business, not in the awards business, not in the promotional products business or the sign business. I'm in the relationship business. And what proved to me that I was right more than anything was the pandemic of 2020. Because if you think about our business, I'm in the event business a lot of times where it's people gathering. They get awards. Mm-hmm. They're going to trade shows. They get promotional products. Well, that didn't happen. And we're a seasonal business, I said, which is the second quarter is the heaviest quarter. We do a lot of universities, schools. Though that didn't happen. So I was out of business. But we ended up through relationships surviving and selling a lot of PPE. We got into the mask business, first blank and then personalized. We ended up getting into the hand sanitizer business. I sourced the bottles. We got the liquid. We bought a filling machine. We had the labels that personalized them. We got into I just forgot the name of it. For school districts, we sold the panels that prevented the people from getting transferring.
The acrylic panels.
The acrylic panels, thank you. There's a word for it. I just lost it. But the biggest sale was we became part of the supply chain for the state for medical gloves for the vaccines. And that's another book that will go unwritten. And there was a lot of bad actors at that time. But through my buying group, they put me overseas a number of years. I had relationships that allowed me to connect the dots and deliver medical gloves when others couldn't. We never had $1 million sale in our life. We had multiple $1 million sales when we should be out of business because of relationships. And the relationships saved the jobs. I laid off all my employees my year of first time I ever laid off an employee. I laid off all 45 of them on March 20th at 2:30. I'll get emotional. It still stays with me. And I was able to hire them back the same day, 2 hours later, because of a relationship. I was honest in my communication with my bank and told them that basically we're going out of business. And they offered me loans to keep me afloat, and I couldn't take it because I didn't think I'd be able to pay them back. They called me back an hour later and said, listen, we've got another customer in the call center business that's just got awarded the contract for the state of New York. And they need to find callers immediately to fill the seats to make COVID test appointment calls into the boroughs of New York when the body bags are building up. And I couldn't say yes fast enough. And an hour later, I offered my employees their jobs back as a call center.
Wow.
And save the jobs. All relationships, the sales, the ability to quote unquote pivot, or the opportunity to pivot came out of relationships. So I'm in the relationship business.
I get it. And I hear, especially in the sales world, I hear everybody say, I'm a relationship guy and everything else. And I think they have a false perception of what that is. So what did you do to build up all these awesome relationships that you have, which basically saved your business?
Yeah. I belong to a lot of groups, relationship groups. And I look to help people. That's what I think is at the heart of, it's not networking to me, it's building relationships. And I look to help people, and I don't look for it to come back. And sometimes it does, but that's what it is. And it's been years of doing that. I'm old, so I have the fortune of being old and living it, and building up those relationships over time. You can't microwave those relationships. Some salespeople, you go into a room, and I give some talks about networking, quote unquote networking, where they go into the room and they're selling, they're handing you a card, and I advise them not to do that. I want to know about you. If I meet you in a room, I don't care that you know me. I want to know who you are. I want to know what you're about, and then I want to know, how can I help you? And I truly try to think of one way that I connect the dot to help you with another relationship or something that you're looking to do, that I can help you with. And then I have a process to go build those relationships. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. I'll put you into my Outlook. I will make notes of our conversation, how many kids you have, where you grew up, what school you went to, where and when I met you, so that when I meet you 5 years later and you don't know me or don't remember me, and I don't have the greatest memory, so I'll pull up my brain and I'll say, all right, hey, Gary, I remember we met 5 years ago at this banquet on a Tuesday, and it was raining, and you look at me like I'm, oh my God. And it starts the conversation. It gets the relationship. So
Yeah.
that's what I do. And I just developed that over time out of necessity.
Yeah, no, I think you hit an important point there. And I've, it's something I try to do. It's something that I've read about for years, in that if you go into those networking opportunities, right, and you look more towards helping others, that it does end up helping you when you need it, right? And you saw it come back when you needed it. Absolutely at your worst point, your lowest point, right? You lay off all your employees, you think that you're literally going out of business.
Yep.
And because of those relationships, you had this opportunity to take on that call center and bring your employees back. All
Yes,
because you did it the right way. You looked to serve first and let other people serve you when you needed it.
absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
find a lot of relationships are really forged when things don't go well. I mean, if somebody came in and ordered stuff from you, Keith, and you got the order and you delivered it fine, and whether you remember where you met them or had notes on them or not, if everything goes fine, you're a vendor. If something goes wrong, if there's an issue, and how you handle that and how you follow up with them and how you go out of your way to take care of them, that's when you really earn those relationships and earn those customers. I'm sure that you've experienced a lot of that over the
Oh,
years.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Gary. And the thing is, when we're operating these smaller businesses, small and medium-sized businesses in the country, what we do to serve those customers above and beyond doesn't get reported on the same way that Southwest's debacle, was reported on, and the way that they're responding. But they're doing exactly what you just said, Gary. They're going above and beyond, and they're refunding everybody, and they're paying for rental cars, and they're, doing all these kinds of things to go above and beyond. But what that's going to do is it's going to create even more loyalty from their customer base, because they went above and beyond in that particular instance when it was really their screw up. It was their own internal screw up. They didn't keep their systems up to date, but they owned it, they fixed it, and went well beyond fixing it for their customers.
So Keith, you said you're old. What's the game plan? What's a long game plan here? Is there other people in the business that we want to pass this down to? You're going to sell it? You're going to run this till you go to your grave? What's the plan?
I'm a Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business alumni. And I went into that program a number of years ago with the idea that I was going to, I love what I do, that I was going to go to my grave. People would ask what my exit plan is. And I said, a box in the ground. I was going to go out with my boots on. I came out of that program with a different perspective. And I've got, to answer your question, I've got 3 minority partners that are 10 years younger than me. So right now, what I'm trying to do is get it in shape and in place, just basically to pass the torch to them and the employees, and to take care of them. Right now, I am very fortunate to be able to have my cake and eat it too. I've got a very loyal, long-term experienced staff with some great partners who support, that give me a lot of freedom in the business. So I've worked 24/7. I've been there and I've done it, and I'm not doing that right now. One of my firsts is I spend Thursdays with my grandson, my Thursdays with Luke. If you would have told me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, definitely, 3 years ago, that I'd be taking a day off of the week and put my iPhone down and I am present with him for a day, I'd call you nuts. I'm a reformed workaholic. And it's teaching me other lessons in life. So that's my plan, is to set it up for and hand it off to my partners and my employees.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I tell clients all the time, every business owner will exit their business one way or the other. It's either vertically or horizontally. It's your choice. So you're going to exit at some point. You might as well plan for it in the best way possible, for sure.
Yeah, I'm in the planning stages.
Yeah, that's great. So I'll tell you what, one of the things that I heard from everything so far, and I'm just going to kind of summarize this, is, you came into a business that was started in 1929.
Yep.
You came in the 1970s, the late 70s, according to my math here. And in my estimation, you literally walked into a business that was dying, but I would look at it more like it was a startup. And
more or less.
Yeah. And Keith basically figured out how to bootstrap the thing and turn it into something worthwhile. And the biggest theme that I see in everything is that you're just unwilling to give up, right? Because a lot of business owners would have given up multiple times along the way, and you didn't.
Yeah, I'm not the smartest guy you'll ever meet.
No, it's funny because I was listening to a podcast. I want to say last week I was in Las Vegas on business, and I went for a run, and I was listening to this podcast, and it talked about this period of time that we're coming into here pretty quickly, and nobody knows for sure if we're truly going to go into a global recession or not. There's some signs that say we will, some signs that say we won't, some that'll say it's very mild. So, it's across the board, but there will be a good portion of businesses. They're saying up to a third that if we truly go into this global recession, that about a third of small businesses will use that as their excuse to give up and to go and get a job, because then they can say, well, yeah, you remember the global recession of 2023? We shut it down in 2023.
That happened in my industry. That happened in my industry in 2020.
Yeah.
People ask me how we're doing. We just had our best October and November of our history. And it's because I call it the last man standing effect. My industry was hit very hard. I took over some people, and some people have exited because of that excuse. It was just too hard, and it was very hard to get through. And the people that are left standing, and my buying group is part of them. I've got a national buying group of 65 members like me around the country, and we survived, and we're all extremely busy because of it.
Yep.
A bigger piece of the smaller pie.
Yep. I mean, you make adjustments, you have to plan appropriately, you have to make smart decisions, but there's a big part of it that is just being willing to give up. And unfortunately, there are a good amount of entrepreneurs, in quotes, right, who are willing to give up when the going gets tough.
Yeah, when the going got tough, I told my partners I had a difficult time and when I bought and rehabbed my building, and I said, I'm going into building mode. And that meant I lived literally 24/7 for 6 months to get the building rehabbed and opened. I said, I'm going into building mode, and I lived there to get us through the pandemic. I said, if we're going down, I'm going down swinging. I'm not going down.
Yep. No doubt.
And then I used that to, once I got my people in place, I started to reach out to, you talk about small businesses, we're an eco community, an ecosystem upon ourselves. And with all these relationships I've built up, there was a number of people that were hurting. So I started reaching out to others and helping a caterer friend of mine, a restaurant friend of mine. And I used my year of firsts. I found my why became to save a job, to save a life. And I heard that from the head of the Philly Chamber one time, and it stuck, and it came very clear to me. One morning I woke up and I was driven to ride in my office and write it on the pad that I had, what our purpose was to get through this thing, which is we were going to save jobs, and we're going to save jobs because we're going to save a life, because a job gives people purpose, gives them means. So I filled a restaurant for the first time in my life. It was closed for 4 months. I called up my friend and I said, when you open? He says, the first day after Labor Day is our first day. I said, can I have permission to fill your restaurant? I've never done that before in my life. He thought I was, I think, crazy. And he gave me permission. And I invited everybody that I knew, friends, family, business associates, some of them still afraid to get out. I filled the restaurant for a day and basically for the rest of the week. The caterer, I called her up and she was crying in the pain that I was in. She said, I got enough backlog for another couple of weeks for my 10 core people. She had laid off a couple hundred and she was in tears. And I lived that pain a couple of weeks before. And I just asked her some very stupid questions. I'm very good at that. And I watched the Simon Sinek thing, and I sent it to her to get her to think. So I'm going to send this thing to you, and I want you to think differently. And I'm going to call you up, and we're going to figure something out. And I called her up after she watched it, and we came up with the first time I ever did a business plan in an hour. And she's brilliant. And we decided to come up with these meals for a week, pre-cooked, that we were going to give to the frontline workers. And long story short, I got her a shot on a local TV station. She didn't know it at the time, through some connections. And it blew up. She got donations, and she ended up selling thousands and thousands and thousands of meals to all these local hospitals. And now she's bringing her people back, and it saved their company. And I was doing those type of things. And it inspired me. My call center business, which we held on to for a year, after the New York gig was done, we migrated to taking calls for the employment for California, because the partner that I was with won that contract and needed jobs. And I ended up getting jobs for a number of people in my national buying group. I became cocky. I said, whatever number of seats you want, let me know and I'll fill jobs. Because I had people that were unemployed. So first time in my life, I ever filled 123 jobs in one day. I worked through the night to do that, to put this program together, to get the people employed. First time I ever had a suicide call on a line from somebody that had lost their job, lost everything, calling from his car, unemployed, obviously, couldn't get his benefits. And we had 3 supervisors on the line, police on the way, when he pulled the trigger. He gave up hope. So it became my why. And it pushed me to the streets of Philadelphia. Center City. I slept on the streets of Philadelphia December 5th. It was cold, 30 degrees, with the homeless, because I wanted to understand and appreciate what it was like to lose a job, lose everything. I just don't understand how they can do it. One of the first I had, I was cold called by a local radio station at the time. When they heard about my pivot, and I had my 15 minutes of fame of turning myself into a call center and saving jobs. And he's interviewing me. He says, I just came from a soup kitchen line last week. This was in the heart of when everything was happening. And he says, there's people like me and you in that line that have had jobs their whole life. They're sitting in line for food. So it became a real driver for me that year to make me do things out of my comfort zone for the small business community to save jobs. And I did a lot of other, the book, The Leap Year First. I started the year 2020, obviously not knowing that a pandemic or these unwanted firsts were going to happen to me. A typical bucket list type of things, as you would imagine. I raced a car in Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I flew a plane out of Northeast Philadelphia Airport. So I was doing that kind of stuff. And then the pandemic hit, and it gave it a different purpose, a meaning. So it was quite unique.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by that whole thing, and I want to kind of back up here in just a minute and talk about what your thought process was and how you got started with that before the pandemic hit, and then kind of how you pivoted when the pandemic hit. But let's take a quick break. We'll hear a quick call to action from our listeners, have an opportunity to take a drink, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that book. Hey there, Tycoons. Austin Peterson here, co-host of Tycoons of Small Biz. If you think you have what it takes to be considered a tycoon and you're wondering how you could become a featured guest, please follow and then message us at Tycoons of Small Biz on LinkedIn. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see if it is a mutually good fit, and if so, we'll get you scheduled for an interview. If you're unsure about being a guest on our podcast, but are contemplating selling your business over the next few years and you'd like to know what your business is worth, please also follow us and then message us on LinkedIn for your no obligation, informal valuation of your business. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for listening to the Tycoons of Small Biz podcast. And now, back to today's program. All right, Tycoons, welcome back. We're here with Keith with Spike Trophies or GoSpikes.com. And Gary Braun and I are here talking to him about, what it is that he has done over his career, really the last 45 years, but really since the pandemic is when things got interesting. So, Keith, before the pandemic, you said you made this bucket list, right? You started doing things. So what was the thought process in doing that? Maybe it was just, by your own words, you were getting old and you wanted to do some things, but maybe there's more to it. And then just kind of tell us how that pivoted. And then if you want to share some more examples, that'd be great too.
Sure. So it was December 5th, and I was at a SHRM event. I was there as a guest, which is a human resource organization. Again, another relationship opportunity. And I went there to see if I should become a member, if it was a good use of my time to develop relationships. And it just so happens the keynote speaker that day was Luann Kahn. And she's a local investigative reporter. She is an Emmy award-winning investigative reporter who happened to be a breast cancer survivor who had written a book, I Dare Me. So my year of first is not unique. And I Dare Me was she dared herself to do something new every day. Actually, her daughter dared her to do something new every day. And she wrote a book about it. And she was stuck in her career. Technology was passing her by and with breast cancer, and she's feeling sorry for herself, and her daughter didn't recognize the person that this accomplished person had become, and said, Mom, you got to get unstuck. You've got to do something new and challenge yourself. And long story short, she did that and then ended up doing it for a year. Wrote a book in front of this group, and she's telling some of these stories. And she got emotional about one of the stories about a homeless person. First time she spoke to a homeless person in Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia. And she ate a scorpion and, some crazy stuff. And her first was the polar bear plunge in Atlantic City on the 1st of January. So in this group of people, she says, I want you to, what's one thing you've always wanted to do? What's the first that you want to do? I want you to write it down. I want you to turn to your person you're right, commit to doing it. And anybody want to share? I was one of the people. I got up and I said, I want to fly a plane. I half believed it. Now I'm old. I didn't think, I thought that time had passed me, and I don't know if I believed it, but it sounded good. And afterwards, I stayed after and I got a signed copy, and I said, you inspired me. I said, I'm going to do a year first. So I get the book and I'm reading it out in the parking lot, and I'm half-assed thinking about it. And her year, first thing she did was a polar bear plunge. So I signed up for it, and that's what I was going to do. And then I started composing a list of firsts. I stole some from her, some that I've always wanted to do. I was supposed to go down the Nile on a river cruise later in the year and go to Jerusalem to go to, for the first time, where all the religions started. So I was curious about different religions. So I started to put religious services I'd never attended. And so I built this list, and I started off the year. And I couldn't do the polar bear plunge because I had an AFib, and my doctor says you could kill yourself. So I ended up not doing that, and I did something else. I went to the Mummers Parade, which is a Philadelphia thing, live for the first time. That was my first. And then proceeded to do something every day. Some of them were elaborate. Some of them were, I went to YouTube University, as I say, because if you've never done something, you don't know how to do it. So I Googled how to. And sometimes I would just go how to and see what came up, and okay, I never did that. I did that. So some of it was spontaneous, some of it was stupid, some of it was planned. Some people asked me, what's the hardest first you ever did? And without question, I always say, drive the speed limit, the actual speed limit. I did that on January 4th, and I have a heavy foot. In my younger years, I actually lost my license due to speeding tickets. I'm not proud of it, but it is a fact. So it was a challenge for me. So I put on Waze, And so I wanted to see where I was driving and what the actual speed limit was. And I went 1 mile an hour underneath it.
Oh.
Now, I'm from the city of Philadelphia and the city of brotherly love. Well, let's just say I was showed a lot of brotherly love that day. You can't imagine, and it's not safe. And I contend that nobody drives the actual speed limit. I was doing 15 miles an hour on an on-off ramp, 25 miles through a certain zone, 30 miles on a street that everybody's going 60. I put on my blinkers and pulled off to the side, and I was going down 95 doing 55. Well, they're going 75, 80. Sometimes I think they think the speed limit's 95. I had old ladies blinking at me.
I don't know if I could do it. I don't think I could get through the whole day.
I was so rattled. I got into my office. My partner comes to me, he says, "Keith, your blinkers are still on." I go down. Not only were my blinkers still on, my car was still running. I was so rattled. So that's why I say it was the hardest thing I ever did.
That would be a hard one for me. So I actually had my license suspended twice before I was 19 years old for excessive speeding tickets. And I still, I'm more controlled now, but
So am I.
I'm pretty much a 9 miles per hour over the speed limit everywhere I go. It's just the way that I
Well,
was,
that's why I said the actual speed limit, because it's accepted. You talk to my police friends, 5 to 10 miles, 9 miles is acceptable. That's the norm.
Yeah.
1 mile.
So your book is a leap year of firsts. So was
Yes.
that one of your firsts, was writing the leap year book?
I had never written a book, and yes, that was my first book. It took me a year to write it, 3 rewrites. I learned a lot through the process. So yes, that was a first.
Yeah. So I tell you, for me, Gary and I have talked about this a little bit, maybe not extensively, but I'm a big believer in always preparing yourself for or doing something that gets you out of your comfort zone. Right. So I don't know that I would do something new every single day. Right. Hats off to you for doing that. But I'm always preparing for something that's going to put me out of my comfort zone. Right. So, I'll do Ironman races. Gary and I've talked about this. I'm currently getting ready to do another half Ironman race that gets you out of your comfort zone. It pushes you physically. I've sang a solo in a church congregation, right? That's something that's out of a comfort zone for most people, right? Other than those who, are professional singers. So I'm always trying to do something that gets me out of my comfort zone. So, and I believe that makes all of us better people if we're all constantly trying to better ourselves or do something that's uncomfortable.
I can't agree with you more. One of my upcoming hopeful firsts is a TED Talk, and it's about that. What these firsts do for you in making you uncomfortable and getting you out of the comfort zone so that you can grow. So I was interviewed for a podcast by somebody. It was Meet the Author. And the interviewee was a part-time comic and says to me, "You ever do stand-up comedy?" I said, "No, I don't think I'm funny. And I'm not really, no." And she says, "Would you?" And this mindset of these firsts made me say, okay. Set me up with her comedy friends. I went to a 5-week course, and I ended up graduating on stage with a 10-minute act of stand-up comedy. If you would have asked me, I'm a recovering shy person, that I would be on stage with a stand-up comedy act, talk about singing in a band. My daughter made me swear never to sing in public because I would embarrass the family. One of my first was fronting a band poorly, singing a Doors song, and totally embarrassing myself. I mean, I was totally uncomfortable. So yes, being uncomfortable, walking into, and I did a number of different religious services where I just walked in cold I would listen to podcasts. I listened to my first podcast, and I thought a podcast was a couple people with cans with a they're talking about, and I learned so much about different things once I got addicted to podcasts. So I would listen to podcasts about various religions or the ones that I was going to go attend, and I'd go to a service and just walk in and experience it and try to understand. Just very uncomfortable things that made me sleep on the streets of Philadelphia. My wife thought I was crazy. There was a lot of murders in Center City, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
She pleaded with me, but I was driven. And it gave me a lot of perspective, empathy, understanding. And it was uncomfortable, but I grew and I learned, and it was worthwhile.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Keith, whenever we do these, I'm always looking for, what are the lessons learned for the other tycoons that are listening in? And you there's a few that have just struck me with your story here. Empathy, like times 1,000. It's unbelievable the empathy that you show for the people on the streets of Philadelphia, for your clients, for friends, for acquaintances and whatnot. That's a key to how you develop those relationships that you do. And I think that's a great lesson for anybody listening. The other one is to call you a learner would be an understatement for learning. I mean, your curiosity. I've never heard of anybody who said, I'm going to study religions and then go listen to the services. I mean, your curiosity about everything, that's a trait you take into business, and you get curious about other people's what's going on and combine it with the empathy. And pretty soon you know them, you understand them, and people want to work with people that they know and they understand. That's phenomenal. And the other thing I picked up was you have a knack for understanding that change is not always good, but change also equals opportunity. When the whole environment changes and you can go, I'm going to open up a call center. I'm going to start making masks. I'm going to do this. That's phenomenal. So this conversation.
There's a famous quote: in the midst of chaos, there's opportunity.
Absolutely.
And somebody sent me that. One of my buying group members sent it to me in the heat of the matter and said that you should put this up on your wall because this is what you're doing for us. Yeah. You're creating opportunities in the chaos. And it was because I wasn't giving up. That question, that comment you made, I didn't have, failure wasn't an option to me.
Yeah.
So I had to find something.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly something that's in some people's DNA and not others, right? And I'm a believer that most things can be learned if you spend the time and the effort to do it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And you talked.
I don't know if I'll ever learn to sing very well.
You may be surprised. Yeah, no, I'm with you, but you said early on that you weren't a great student, right? And so that's why you left school and you went and worked at the sporting goods store and all that sort of thing. But that there's a difference between being a great student in terms of the system that we have in our country versus being a great learner, like Gary said, right? You have this thirst for knowledge, you have this thirst to be better, and that drives you to constantly be learning as much as you can about whatever. And religion, I think that's awesome. By the way, my wife and I are going to Israel in a month. We leave on March 3rd, so we're excited for that. If you haven't done it yet, I would get that on the list.
Well, I haven't, and actually I am planning it right as we speak. I just got back from the Galapagos 2 weeks ago. Talk about a lot of firsts. That was magical. I took 7 couples there, and now they said, let's go to Egypt. So we're going to Egypt and Jerusalem. So I'd love to hear your experiences.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch. We'll talk about it. We're doing Israel and Jordan. We could have extended one more week and done Egypt. So we're there for 2 weeks, 3rd through the 18th. And so
you're gonna do Petra too?
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to do that.
Yeah. But I couldn't do one more week to stretch it out to do Egypt. So we'll have to do it at a different
Yeah,
time.
you're not as old as me, so
The gray hair in my beard, it surprises some people. We did an enrollment meeting for a 401k plan last week, and one of the participants is getting ready to retire, and she said something about, old people like us, right? And she motions to me, and I said, don't let the gray hair fool you. I'm 46 years old, so I got plenty of time to do those kinds of things for sure.
yeah, I got you by 20.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, you started at the sporting goods store a year after I was born, so I knew you had me by about that. Well, I tell you what, Keith, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I could sit here and listen to you about the leap year first and everything that you've built. If there's anything that you want to make sure that our listeners hear that you think would be beneficial, I'd love to hear it. If not, then I would say, let's let us know how to get a hold of you for, awards and promotional materials and signage and anything that any of our listeners would be in need of.
The one thing that I do want to share is, especially to fellow business owners, when the proverbial shit hits the fan, what I learned out of the year was there's 5 things that I kept repeating. I limited my pity party, because you can easily feel sorry for yourself. I could have crawled up in a ball, and I did. I threw a hell of a pity party, but I limited it. I give myself 24 hours, and then start ask good questions, not only of yourself, but of trusted others. Rely on your core values. We would have never made it through without it. One of the core values was the ability to say yes, or find the ability to say yes. My people found the ability to say yes when asked to become a call center. And then when you don't have the answers, sleep on it. Many times I put my head on the pillow with a lot of different issues, problems, looking for solutions, and didn't have it. And I woke up with a number of them because I put my mind in that framework of solutions. And then just work the problem every day, grind it out. So there are the 5 things: limit your pity party, ask good questions, rely on your core values, sleep on it, and then work the problem. And then I'm Keith Baldwin. You can find me at Spikes Trophies. That's gospikes.com, GOSPIKES.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know that there's a better message that we could end with. Anything you'd add, Gary?
No, it's been fun talking to you, Keith. It's your curiosity blows me away. You got inspired by the woman that you went and listened to. I got inspired by you today. So it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast for small business owners by small business owners. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Arizona time for an introduction to another great tycoon. And be sure to follow us on our social media channels for links to all of our episodes and great content.
I also should have mentioned the book, or give